The recall in California is heating up, and with that, some concerns about election security because California plays fast and loose with its election laws. Also, more information on Afghanistan. Things are still happening. Joe Biden is supposed to address the nation again today. There's a lot of stuff coming at you that we're going to talk about today. I didn't get the show thing up right now, so it starts right now. This is the Joe Bob Show.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Live from a dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. This is the Joe Bob Show. My name is Joe Bob. Today is August 20th, 2021, the year that everything went back to normal. Total normalcy, much normal. A lot of interesting things going on today. The Gavin Newsom recall in California is heating up. We have some interesting footage found around the internet. A lot of things revolving around the whole election problem that is California's. There's a lot of California election problems. With that, we want to bring up some other issues in California that Gavin Newsom is pushing, as well as a lot of stuff going on in Afghanistan right now. But first, I want to tell you about capitalist propaganda. You may think capitalist propaganda, isn't that a bad thing? No, capitalist propaganda is a great thing. It's up to you to spread capitalist propaganda to help defeat the empire. Capitalism, capitalist propaganda, this is one of my favorite ones. Go ahead, use your iPhone to tweet about how much you hate me. And this is the shirt I'm wearing today. You're welcome. Love capitalism. But here's the other thing that I want to show you from capitalist propaganda that's just now out today. I have already bought 4 of these, but they're the capitalist propaganda. Again, head on over to capitalistpropaganda.us. You're going to get a kick out of this. These are the gas station stickers. Now, I am not a proponent of at all vandalizing any property, especially privately owned property. I don't think this is vandalizing, but these stickers are now available at capitalistpropaganda.us. It would look hilarious on your gas pump. I don't know if you've noticed, but gas prices are through the freaking roof, in part because Joe Biden has restricted access to oil in the United States. We're asking OPEC for oil now. How ridiculous is that? But not to get into that whole thing, gas prices are through the roof. And with that, these are hilarious. We did it, Joe. Gas prices higher than Hunter Biden. The miss me yet, Donald Trump. Gas prices are through the roof, and these gas price stickers are hilarious. Get them over at capitalistpropaganda.us. Tell your friends that their socialist ideas totally suck. Stickers are $4. They're hilarious. I've ordered all 4 of them so far, and it's possible that they may show up around my local area in which I live. But speaking of Joe Biden and the Biden administration, to a more serious note, Afghanistan is out of control. Clarissa Ward is on the ground reporting for CNN. Hashtag CNN sucks. Except for this. This is good reporting. And Clarissa Ward and her producer have bigger cojones than I do. They are unbelievably brave in what they're doing. We have a clip from CNN that we want to play you. It's a little bit lengthy. Maybe we'll pause it, talk about a few things in the middle of it, but sit tight. This is incredible reporting. Clarissa Ward talking about the blockades that are surrounding the airport and then having a run-in with the Taliban. Check this out.
America's last foothold in Afghanistan is now guarded by the Taliban.
Yeah, see, the Taliban are all over. They don't allow anyone.
We've come to Kabul's airport to see the gauntlet people must pass through to fly out.
You can hear gunshots every couple minutes.
CNN.
Quickly, we are accosted by an angry Taliban fighter.
Can I ask you a question?
Nuts.
Excuse me?
He says first.
Cover my face? Okay. Cover my face. What is this? What is that?
So we're going to skip ahead a little bit because this is a long video. There's a lot of stuff in between this, but she's on the streets of Kabul asking the Taliban questions. Insane guts on this woman and her producer. We're going to skip ahead a little bit in the video. She's talking to people who have passports or paperwork that are trying to get through the blockade to the airport. Again, this is Chris Ward from CNN.
They calling me.
Was this an Italian company?
Yeah, Italian company.
Okay, I don't want this guy to whip you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Others crowd around us to show their documents.
Camp Phoenix. You work for Camp Phoenix.
It's my HR letter.
Yeah. You were a translator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What
What we are doing.
These are all the people that
So
the
we're
Biden
saying
administration is
they all
leaving
worked at
behind.
American
Yeah,
camps
we have-
as translators for the Americans, and they can't get into that airport. These Taliban fighters are a little upset with us. So let's keep going.
We decide to leave and head for our car. The fighter takes the safety off his AK-47 and pushes through the crowd.
Stay behind him. Stay behind him.
You can see that some of these Taliban fighters, they're just hopped up on adrenaline, or I don't know what. It's a very dicey situation.
Nope.
Suddenly, two other Taliban charge towards us. You can see their rifle butt raised to strike producer Brent Swales. When the fighters are told we have permission to report, they lower their weapons and let us pass. Clarissa Ward, CNN, Kabul.
This is nuts. One, hats off to her. This is some phenomenal reporting. Clarissa Ward reporting on the streets of Kabul, interacting with Taliban and asking questions of them. But then you saw she was also talking to Afghan individuals who had worked for NATO countries, including the United States, who can't get through the blockade. So just to break this down again, still today, the Biden administration is saying, yeah, we'll get people out of the air. We'll get people out. We'll fly people out of the airport. We're going to keep rescue flights and evacuation flights coming constantly. However, if nobody can get into the airport, what's the good of it? What's the point? Or the New York Times today is still reporting that flights are leaving half empty. And yeah, there's nothing we can really do about it. Here's a comment that's coming up. Impeach Biden now. We're going to get to this in a quick second because Lindsey Graham had something. Actually, we'll go to that right now. Lindsey Graham was on Fox News yesterday and had some interesting things to say regarding the Afghanistan situation. Let's take a listen to, again, Senator Lindsey Graham. Actually, before we play this, I want to set the scene really quick. Remember, President Joe Biden, former Senator Joe Biden, and Lindsey Graham, Senator, have been in the Senate for decades, literally, and are really good friends. Some people say that they're best friends, like hang out outside of their government capacity. But Lindsey Graham is on Fox News yesterday saying this. Doesn't look like we have any audio. Wonder why that is. Not entirely sure why that is. Let me see if I can track down the actual audio from this particular interaction with Lindsey Graham. Maybe we'll come back to it. It doesn't look like we have audio here right now. But Lindsey Graham basically said that if we leave a single Afghan behind, or an Afghan individual that helped the United States, he would consider that a high crime and misdemeanor and a dereliction of duty from the President of the United States, which would be an impeachable offense, says Lindsey Graham, Senator, United States. I don't know if you've noticed, but the word impeachment, the I word, has been thrown around a lot in the last couple of years, and maybe that's a good thing. There's several legal scholars that I've listened to, read up on, that say we should impeach more people all the time. So I'm curious to see if, well, one, pretty much everybody agrees that the Republicans will more than likely take back the House. Democrats currently have the slimmest majority in the history of the House, but the common thought is that Republicans will take back the House in 2022? And if they do they impeach President Biden on this Afghanistan debacle? Even then, if they can swing 15, 20 Democrats in the House, maybe they can impeach him now, depending on how things play out. I'm honestly worried that a couple weeks from now, we may look back on this week and think this was great, because the Taliban can go nuts at any point. And that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation on the ground. A lot of comments coming in talking about impeaching Biden, and this isn't my words. This isn't like extremist whatever. This is Lindsey Graham, one of your reasonable senators, talking about one of his best friends, Joe Biden, and how if we can't pull off arguably the greatest rescue attempt in the history of evacuation rescue attempts, he would consider that a high crime misdemeanor or dereliction of duty, which would validate impeachment for the president. We'll try and find that audio in a little bit and see if we can get you listening to Lindsey Graham talking about that. But speaking of improper duties, as Democrat leaders have, speaking of Democrats that aren't great leaders, Gavin Newsom in California is facing a recall. If you don't know about this, even if you're not from California, this could be a big stepping stone into a state taking back its control. Gavin Newsom, just to briefly lay out the timeline, Kevin Kiley and James Gallagher, who are state assembly members, sued Gavin Newsom in the middle of 2020. And then in November, they won that lawsuit at I believe the circuit court level, where a judge said Gavin Newsom exercised too much power. The restrictions that he put on businesses, schools, communities, public locations was overreach, was government overreach, which is how I started calling him King Gavin. On top of that, also in November of last year, he was caught eating out at the French Laundry, one of the most expensive, fancy schmancy restaurants on planet Earth, not wearing a mask indoors. There's some debate on whether or not that particular table is indoors. I would consider that indoors. They had the glass doors closed, basically trapping everybody inside. Again, I don't have a problem with that at all. Do it. But this is after Gavin passes his own decree about people wearing masks. So again, if you're not familiar with California politics, that's what's going on. Gavin Newsom has crossed his own rules enough times and publicly been caught for it. People got fed up with the mandates that he's inflicting, the horrible mismanagement of the state government, as well as the complete and utter disregard for his own rules. So Gavin's facing a recall that's happening September 14th. Here's a couple issues going on with the election. Now, I'll start by saying this. When we talk about voter fraud, I don't believe that massive, sweeping voter fraud is taking place. You can disagree with me. You can. I've been in enough political campaigns. If you don't know, I was a political consultant and still am, and I do a lot of political work for candidates and causes. But I've been in enough political campaigns at the highest level, literally the presidential campaign. I've been involved enough to know that political campaigns are among the most disorganized systems or groups of anybody. So no, I do not believe that massive voter fraud took place. However, in California, there are a lot of rules that open up the possibility for voter fraud and essentially legalize cheating. So you can look at, I think you people are smart enough to hold two ideas in your head at one time. First idea is no, massive widespread voter fraud, I don't believe happened. But also, there are some election laws, especially in the state of California, but across a lot of other states, that are so suspect that we need to do something about them. Unfortunately, if you have this idea, you're clumped in with the people that say the Chinese ballot paper, yada, 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 all that stuff that I don't believe at all. But there is a huge portion of us that do think that there are some election laws that are out of control. First one is ballot harvesting. And if you're not familiar with California, we have ballot harvesting here. Well, what the heck is ballot harvesting? It used to be, in the past, you would go to your local voting place, whether it was a school, the city hall, a neighbor's garage, somebody that you trusted. You would walk in, you would show them your ID, and they would cross-reference that with the county voter rolls to make sure you were registered to vote. You would then get verified, and then you would get a paper ballot handed to you. It would be entirely anonymous. You'd go into a closed, curtained-off booth where nobody could see who you voted for, and you would vote. And then you would have a sheet that was over your ballot, and you would submit that ballot into a box, nobody seeing who voted for what. And then that ballot was taken to the county registrar's office, where volunteers from both sides counted votes while being observed by onlookers, attorneys, election officials. All of that seemed above board, and whoever won the election won the election. However, there's so many rules now that allow for the potential to cheat. And that's what I want to make a strong point about. This is not about proving whether or not somebody cheated or fraud exists, because it's very difficult to prove. Thousands of poll workers in any given county or any given state, monitored by several thousand people, counting millions and millions of ballots. It really is. It's hard to prove ballot harvesting. Not to mention, we had Judge Steve Bailey on last week. And if you remember, guess how many people in the California Secretaries of State office are in charge of looking after voter fraud? 20 million voters in California. Guess how many people? 200. Oh, no, sorry, not 200. 20. No, sorry, not 20. 2. We have 2 people at the Secretary of State's office looking after voter fraud. So proving voter fraud is very difficult. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is set up the case that the ability to commit voter fraud is just as bad, because in the United States, whoever wins an election is not the important thing. It is to an extent, because policy comes after elections and elections have consequences. But whoever wins the election isn't necessarily the biggest issue that we could have. The biggest issue that we could have is losing trust in our election system. That's the argument I'm trying to make. We need to create laws and parameters around elections that make fraud nearly impossible, not open it up to anybody who's smart enough to get around the rules. We need to make it so difficult that everybody believes the results, regardless of whether or not their candidate win. Collectively, we all have to believe in the election law. So with that, I want to play this video that's circulating on Twitter right now. Now, again, we're going to have some commentary after. Just watch this video of ballots in California.
More than likely, it seems natural, you're just going to slip this in, but you have to pay attention to these 2 holes that are in the front of the envelope. You can see if someone from the outside of the mail-in ballot, you can see if somebody has voted yes to recall Newsom. This is very sketchy and irresponsible, in my opinion, but this is asking for fraud. So anybody that has access to this mail-in envelope can see who's voted yes, toss it, do whatever they want to it.
So the point that this woman is making, I assume she's a woman, can never be sure nowadays, especially in California, is that it's possible to see. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. It's not whether or not you can prove voter fraud, because there are not many people out there seeking to prove that. Remember, there's 2 people in the state Secretary of State's office trying to seek out voter fraud. That's not a lot of people. A lot of it could feasibly get missed. The point I'm trying to prove is that we all have to believe in the system. And when we don't, when there are things like this that cause us to question the system, that's just as bad. That's just as bad. So whether or not anybody actually takes action on something like this is irrelevant. The idea that it could happen is just as bad, because we need people to buy into the election system. And whoever wins, we all need to agree that it was done fairly. And stuff like this doesn't help. Now, not all of the envelopes are like this young lady's envelope. It's done by county. The county is responsible for sending out ballots, and some counties have different holes in envelopes in different places. So not every envelope is like this, but mistakes like this can't happen. They just can't. Especially in a state that has ballot harvesting. And there's another video that we'll look at that shows some of the problems with ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting, if you're not familiar, anybody can go to anybody's door, knock on the door, and say, "Hi, I'm here to collect your ballot. I'm with the ballot harvesting committee." And you may think, "Oh, that's fine. Well, they'll just turn in the ballot." Here's the thing. As a political consultant, I'm aware, and I want to make you aware of how much data we have on you. If you're registered to vote, the county registrar makes voter rolls publicly available to people. So that means that a person door knocking on doors knows who you are, where you live, how you're registered. So if you're collecting ballots, and let's just say the husband of the household is a Republican, the wife is a Democrat. If you're collecting ballots for King Gavin, you're not even going to ask for the husband's ballot. Why would you? Chances are he's voting to recall, but chances are the wife, who's a Democrat, isn't. Entire households are like that. If you're walking collecting ballots, well, that's a Republican household, that's an independent household, this is a Democrat household, I'm going to go pick up their ballot or see if they'll give it to me. On top of that, if I went to a Democrat house and picked up their ballot, then I went to a Republican ballot house and picked up their ballots and put them in separate pockets, who's to say that I can't go to the registrar and turn in all of the Democrat ballots or all of the Republican ballots? And then the law says that you have to make a reasonable concerted effort in order to turn in the ballots if you collect them. Okay, cool. I'll make a concerted effort. I'll go to Santa Ana, find a homeless person, give them $100 and a box of Democrat ballots and say, "Here, please drop these off at the county registrar's office." And it might get there. It's very possible that those ballots might get there. It's also a possibility that they might wind up scattered across the park, not turned in. This is the problem with ballot harvesting. So that's what I want to get at. And with ballot harvesting, California does send ballots to literally everyone in the state. And then we get videos like this. And again, more commentary to follow. But then we have videos like this. Don't know what they're doing. Looks like, if you're just listening to this, people are scaling through mailboxes. Looks like they're taking ballots. Again, I don't know. I'm not here to, spread ridiculousness. We have no idea what they are doing specifically, but the tweet from it said that these are people stealing ballots out of mailboxes. Again, no idea if that's actually what's happening. I'm not going to pretend that, this is absolutely people stealing ballots. But this is clearly somebody going through mailboxes at what looks like an apartment building and taking something out. Now, let's just say, hypothetically, they are ballots. Who's to say that you can't just turn them in? California, again, doesn't have stringent voter ID laws like Texas just passed or like Georgia just passed, where you have to write in your ID number to verify that it's you with an absentee ballot. California doesn't have that. You have to sign the ballot, yes, and there's a signature matching process, but a signature matching process is done by people at the state level. So who knows I don't know what my signature looks like. I have no idea what the state held signature on file is. So the signature matching component is antiquated and effectively useless, especially when we have state issued IDs, but California doesn't have that rule. So in the case that these people are stealing ballots, and I don't know that they are, but in the case that they are, they would be able to vote for that specific person. And remember, most people don't vote. The overwhelming majority of people don't vote. So your chances of the person whose ballot you're taking not even noticing that you've taken it are pretty high. Look, this is just the reality of the situation. Again, I'm not making the case that voter fraud is rampant. I'm making the case that voter fraud could be rampant, and that's just as bad. Because if we have a situation where nobody believes the election results, that's when we have a problem. You would think that we have a problem if King Gavin survives the recall. Yes, we would. That would be a massive problem. However, a bigger problem would be 10 million Californians who are against King Gavin not believing the outcome of the election. That is where we have a problem. And that is why we need to fortify election laws, because it's not about the fraud we've found. It's about the fraud that's possible. If we can't ensure the viability of elections, we don't have a state or a country anymore. That's just the reality. The only thing that matters is that we all buy into the election process. We need to fortify election laws. Now, a couple more things on the Gavin election. Again, if you're not from California, I apologize, but again, this stuff is fairly interesting. King Gavin has been going around toting a budget surplus. And I had a good friend text me late last night saying, hey, what's the deal with this $75 billion budget surplus that Gavin is talking about? I don't understand it. And that's fair, because you see all over the place that Gavin is touting the 75 billion. I want to make sure I'm saying that right. I'm not sure if it's billion or million. But Gavin is touting the budget surplus that California has. So yeah, $75 billion surplus. Gavin's out there touting, well, we have a $1 billion surplus, and this is what we're going to do with the money. Now, you think surplus, especially with the government, because the government always spends all the money it can. You think surplus, you think, well, that's a good thing, right? Well, kinda. There's a lot of misleading, missing information there. The idea that California has a budget surplus is wildly misleading. We had Kevin Kiley on a couple weeks ago to talk about this in particular, and basically what he said is the idea that we have a budget surplus is misleading because we don't factor in the massive outstanding liabilities that California has into the annual budget, meaning that it's like you calculating your salary, right? You can calculate your salary every single year, but you don't count the debt that you have on your mortgage. Hypothetically, as California, say you did an FHA loan, you put down 3.5% on your house, and you owe $500,000 to the bank on your mortgage. Let's just say hypothetically. Let's just say you make $50,000 a year. You're going to say, well, my income is $50,000 a year. You don't count the $500,000 in debt that you now have. The only difference between that and the pension problem is that at least you have an asset to back it up. California doesn't have an asset for humans to back up the pension liability. All this being said, California has poorly negotiated the pension funds promised to its state employees. So with that, we don't calculate that in the state budget. We are billions of dollars in the hole when it comes to paying out pension liabilities and pension obligations. So when Gavin says that we're in a $75 billion surplus, he's not counting the $300 billion we are in debt. So you know, thought that was the thing to clear up, because he's not the first person to ask me that question. Gavin saying that we're $75 billion to the positive is not anywhere near the truth. You might say, how did that happen? How are we in massive pension liabilities? Okay, again, quick little lesson for, again, people in California, but also if you're not in California, if you're watching from some other part of the country, you need to know this because don't let it happen in your state. California has an unholy relationship with the unions. The unions and the California state government, a little bit mobbed up, a little bit married. Corruptifornia is what you call California. Lots of crony capitalism here. What that means is California Public Works go negotiate with the unions. Say they want to build a road, right? Say they want to build a freeway somewhere. California State goes to the Caltrans and the union workers at Caltrans or whatever company it is that they're going to use, and they say, well, we want to build this road. Caltrans comes back and say, okay, well, we'll vote for you to keep you in office if you spend this much money on the road and overpay us drastically, as well as contribute to our overly negotiated pension fund. So California says, yes, we'll pay you an absurd amount of money and contribute massively to your pension fund. And then the Caltrans workers or the union workers in the public work system says, okay, we'll vote for you. Same thing that happens with the teachers unions. If you've noticed, a lot of police associations, now police officers in general, I would say, statistically speaking, have a political bent that doesn't align with King Gavin or the Democrats. However, a lot of police organizations, for some reason, support Democrats. Why is that? Because the police unions have been able to negotiate pensions that are just not possible to reach. And California State does that in order to keep them on their good side. It's an exchange. The state overpromises pensions, runs up the deficit on California's budget and the debt that California has as a whole. And in turn, the union organizations continue to vote for Democrats. It is an incestuous pool going on in California, but that is how we have $362 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. That's the number I found. I think it's closer to $1 trillion. I've read a couple articles in the past. There's a lot of different ways you can calculate these things. But California's pensions are so underfunded and so over-negotiated that is the problem that we have. We can get into how the fund works, but I don't want to bore you with all that right now. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. If we were to go back to Afghanistan really quick, Kabul, here's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing. And I've said this every day this week. Kabul can completely explode at any point, meaning that everything that we're doing is at the whim of the Taliban. Again, I've said this every single day, and I'll continue saying it because I don't think a lot of people understand the severity of the situation over there. If the Taliban decide we're done letting Americans in, it's not in our best interest anymore, we're done letting Americans in, everybody's kicked out of the airport, it's done, we're taking over effectively right now. They could decide that this afternoon, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Absolutely nothing. Everything we do is at the whim of the Taliban. And again, I mentioned this before. The Taliban isn't a top-down structured system like you would kind of see in the U.S. military, right? You've got your generals, and then they disperse information or orders or commands down to all the way down to the guys in the infantry. That's not the way the Taliban works. You have pockets of Taliban who are managing checkpoints all around the city that are kind of operating on their own regard. If you remember the Clarissa Ward footage from earlier this episode, they're just kind of doing their own thing. And so a handful of Taliban who are controlling any particular checkpoint could do something awful and completely blow the entire situation apart at literally any point. The New York Times says the Taliban is intensifying their search for Afghans who helped the U.S. to put them on some sort of a list, which is not a good position to be in. Again, I'm hoping for the Biden team to have overwhelming success. I honestly, I hope, I don't care to hit him more politically. That is not at all my concern, and it shouldn't be yours. We want the Biden team to succeed and pull off the greatest retrieval, rescue, evacuation, whatever you want to call it, in the history of the world. We genuinely want that to happen. After the fact, we can debate who's at fault and what's going on. But right now, we all want the Biden team to succeed. However, they put themselves in a terrible position. And again, the New York Times says the Taliban is intensifying their search for Afghans who helped the United States. Speaking of the Taliban, this is the last thing we'll kind of get to before we wrap up. End on a little bit of a lighter note. It is a Friday. Sorry to... I forgot that it was Friday. Sorry to be pretty much entirely downward spiraling on a Friday. So we'll end on a little bit of a funny note. This is from the Babylon Bee. Now, well, let me just show you this meme from the Babylon Bee. It's not a meme, actually. It's a real Twitter account. It's Trumpistan. Trumpistan will make Afghanistan great again. The reason that this is hilarious, this is clearly not Donald Trump. This is definitely a joke. Just so you all know, and I don't have to field comments saying, "Can you believe that?" But this is Donald. This is a joke on the fact that, remember, the spokesman for the Taliban is on Twitter. I don't know if you know this, but the Taliban pulled off an actual insurrection, not a bunch of nut jobs storming into the capital of the United States, which we all agree is a bad thing. No, the Taliban actually pulled off an insurrection. Their spokesman still has a Twitter account. Former leader of the free world, very influential individual. A lot of people want to hear what he has to say. Isn't allowed to have a Twitter account. Nope. Too dangerous. The Taliban, no, they're fine. They're good. They can be on Twitter. Donald Trump, nope. Too dangerous. As if Donald Trump did more destruction than the Taliban, or at least was capable of it. I don't believe that's true. So, Jack Dorsey, Twitter, you got some things to answer for. Sorry we couldn't get to much of the comments today. A lot of good stuff. Really want to... dang it. All right. We're running out of time, but I want to touch on this really quick. Yes. Vote for Larry Elder. I'm a big Larry Elder fan. I've been friends with Larry for several years now. Maybe I'll tell one of my hilarious Larry stories next week. But the whole gun situation. I was telling one of the producers on this show, last week, maybe even before that. Unfortunately, Larry's going to get hit with some stuff that may be true, may not. We have no idea. There's no way of knowing if the gun allegations are true. If you're not aware of this, Larry Elder is being accused of putting a gun to his ex-fiance's head at some point. Look, there's no way of knowing. Unless there's video proof of it or some sort of proof, there's no way of knowing. Now, obviously, he's denying those allegations, but I called this a week ago. I might have even said it on this show. I'll dig back and try and find some of that stuff. But Gavin was sitting on something, or King Gavin's loyal subjects were sitting on something that was going to come out against Larry Elder. Now, if it's true, that's terrible. But we have no idea of knowing if that's true. But what I do know is that none of this is a coincidence. This is just what happens in politics. Somebody sits on dirt. I'd be willing to bet. Remember, there was a story that came out at the beginning of this year that Gavin was up to his old ways, snooping around the office, getting a little something from his employees up at the Capitol. That story kind of died out, but I'd be willing to bet that somebody's going to bring that up again with 3 weeks left until the close of the election. Yeah, I wouldn't put that out of... And again, I have no idea if that's true. For being intellectually honest here, we have no idea. But we're in silly season now, and a bunch of crazy stuff is going to come out. Unless it's undeniably verifiable, we have no idea. So that's the situation with Larry Elder. Let's just say Monday I'll tell my hilarious Larry story. This is a couple of years ago. I was doing an event with Larry, and he did one of the funniest things I think anybody's ever done, or at least that I've seen on a political stage. But anyways, that'll wrap it up. That'll do it for this week. Thanks for tuning in every day. If you have been, if you haven't already, go check out Quality Control. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna put this up. I know we're cut for time. We're trying to keep these at 35 minutes, your standard radio time. But I really want to show this again. If you haven't already, head on over to Capitalist Propaganda, where we have these hilarious. They have these hilarious stickers. I've already bought 4 of them. They're stickers that, I'm going to say this for the record. I don't recommend that you put these on private property. But let me show them again. If you're just listening, these are stickers that say I did that, and they point to the high gas prices. We did it, Joe. Gas prices higher than Hunter Biden. We didn't even get to the Hunter Biden story. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Jeez, a lot of stuff to get to. But the gas station stickers are available at capitalistpropaganda.us. They're only $4. I've bought too many of them already, and I will probably buy more because they're that hilarious. If you do buy more, the shipping cost goes down. So if you buy 20 of these things, hand them out to your friends, see them on your local gas station, the shipping prices goes way down. So head on over to Capitalist Propaganda, get your gas station stickers, as well as all of the Capitalist Propaganda gear that tells your friends their socialist ideas totally suck. Capitalistpropaganda.us. Head on over there as soon as you humanly can. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check it out. If you missed any segment of the show, it's on there. The Joe Bob Show, anywhere you find podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, all of that stuff. We got a great episode coming out this week over on Daily Caller, Quality Control, where we dig deeper into the Afghanistan political component. There's been a lot going on what's happening on the ground and all that sort of stuff. And all that stuff is not fine, but all that stuff is being covered well enough. What's missed is the political component. So really good episode coming out this week on the Daily Caller, Quality Control, with yours truly. Go check it out over there. Like I said, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you next week on the Joe Bob Show on Monday. God bless America.